Hello, everyone. Kevin here, and I wanted to make a short video going over how I use option flow on unusual whales to identify potential trades, and also somewhat to figure out where to enter them. But a lot of that depends on the chart. So this is the unusual whales flow tool. There are a lot of different resources on here. They do alert stocks, and I do pay close attention to those. A lot of times, those will align with things that I'm seeing in the flow, and those alerts are useful in a lot of ways. They aren't buy signals. If you just buy when they alert stocks, you'll definitely lose money. Uh, I mean, especially because sometimes they take a few days to get going. So I don't recommend doing that. But what I use unusual whales for primarily is for this live option flow, and I want to take you through some of my settings and my thinking behind it, and then you can adjust as you go. Now this is a paid service. It is well worth it. It's a lot cheaper than a lot of like Bloomberg Terminal or anything like that. Um, but I would encourage you to just explore the site a bit. They unfortunately don't offer a free trial, but as I said, it's fairly reasonable, and I make the monthly fee for it back in just a single trade to start the week usually. So okay, so let's go through the tools here. If you were to just use this site with no filters at all, what you're going to see are um, bought calls and sold puts and sold calls and a lot of ETFs, and it's just sort of data overload. I mean, particularly here, obviously in that last 15 minutes, but you're going to get trades of all sizes, and a lot of that isn't really going to be that useful to you. If someone spends $100,000 on an SPX put, I mean, it's just one of many, and so again, it's just kind of data overload. I'm not really looking for that. I do look at ETF flow, and I'll probably talk about that in a later video. But what I'm targeting primarily are stocks in a particular range and orders of a particular size. And my thinking behind that is the following. So you go into filters, and these are the settings that I use. Okay, so the first thing I do is I go into emojis, and you can see that all of them are selected here. So I unselect them, and I'm going to cancel out just a few of them. ETF, index, leap, and also bid side. Now, as far as bid and ask side goes, the reason I cancel out bid side is because I'm interested in the options that the whales really want to buy at that moment, and that they're valuing acquiring that option over the price, so they're willing to pay the ask. It falls on the ask side. That is really important, because what I'm looking for in these trades is a relatively short-term underlying move, either up if I'm buying calls, down if I'm buying puts. I don't buy as many puts as calls. The I know that, I mean, making money on both sides of the market is definitely something that we try to do. I think we're still in a bullish market. I mean, we might be entering a correction. So I try to just hop on to the short term upward trends that happen. So even if we have a red day I'll try to catch a bounce, for example. And but that's just me. And again, you can use this to buy puts, and it can work well. So okay, so those are the emojis. I want to just get the ETFs out of there. It's just sort of noise. But now at this point, we still have a ways to go to filter down to what I'm looking for. So the next thing I do is I look at the expiration, and I don't want expirations all the way out here in 2023. I mean, I'm not interested in that. I'm looking for short-term moves. So what I do is I target the next 4 or 5 Fridays, and for some of the options that only offer monthly contracts, you want to think about where you are in the month. So you want to catch 10-15, and then you want to catch a month from then, so that you can see what the whales are looking at with that particular stock. So I'll take it to 10-22, 10-29, and starting this week, I took it all the way out to 11-15, just so I can catch those next monthly contracts in my searches. Okay, so there's that. All right, now we're getting close, but as you can see, these are still some really expensive spots. I'm not buying $4,000 Google calls, and unless it's a Friday, there's no way I'm playing Google. I'm not quite at that level. So we got to start to narrow this price down a bit as well. So what I do there is I'll take the spot, and you can adjust this however you want. You can set it to 3 for $300 contracts. You can set it to lower than that, higher than that, whatever. But me in particular, I set it to $90. If you look at my alerts in the Flow Rider section, most of the contracts I alert are anywhere from $40 to $90. I do that because I like to play the small and mid caps, and I also like to play stocks where I can buy a lot of contracts. And by a lot, I mean, like, I'll buy 5, 6, or so. And I try to keep my position sizing consistent. But the reason I do that is I like to scale out. I don't like to just put everything I have into one contract and try to get that move, and then that's it. I don't average down a lot. If it's a really high conviction swing, I will do that. But when I enter a day trade in the afternoon, I'm usually just looking for a quick underlying move and gains from anywhere from 20 to 60%, and I try to get in and out. So so the spot range, you set that to your comfort zone. But one of the things that it does is we're starting to narrow down the amount of options that show on the screen at any one time. And so I try to get that down to like 30 minutes to an hour. And I'll show you why once we get to that. But the next thing we have to do is one of the more important settings, which is the premium range, because you are chasing whales here, which means that you want large orders. Now, what I'll usually do is I'll have several different tabs set up of orders of various sizes, anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 or higher. And this is just to try to get a sense of what's going on in the orders at multiple levels. But for now, we'll just set this to $10,000. Okay, so these were the results from Friday with these settings. And as you can see, I got approximately 30 minutes on the screen at a time. Now, the end of the day is often a good time to look at what whales are doing. Sometimes I'll catch things um, during this time, and I might enter. I don't usually enter a lot over the weekend, but here this order was kind of interesting. FCX got a lot of activity, and I'm looking at the order sizes, um, pretty big for a stock of that size. But this is a single buyer, and it's a single buyer because nobody is making orders at exactly the same second on exactly the same stock in exactly the same conditions and all that. So so it's a single buyer. I don't usually chase a single buyer, but they'll get my attention, and then I start to maybe go into the next steps. So I want to take us through a trade I actually did, and I have a tab here for it. Okay, so at around noon on Friday, I noticed some orders coming in for Box, and caught my attention just looking at the underlying 2448, noticing that the strike on those is slightly out of the money, and that's that's something that I look for. I'm not really that interested in deep in the money contracts. In fact, you can actually just turn those off, and my settings usually get rid of most of those, but so I'm looking for something slightly above the underlying price where it seems like the whales are maybe trying to push that up. So as you can see with Box, you had this big order here, and I noticed that pretty much as it was happening, just a bunch of the same stock in a row. And so I looked at the chart, and lo and behold, this was around 1208, and this was, and here's 1208 right here during this big candle. So so they're catching or anticipating this big parabolic run up. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to enter here, but I'm definitely watching at this point. So okay, then it cools down and get some consolidation for about 15 minutes or so. And during this 15 minutes, what I'm doing is I'm looking for other orders. I'm looking in the live flow, and this is where it starts to get really promising, because as these other orders came in, the volume exceeded the open interest, which just means that there was a big spike in demand for these particular call options. And because of my filter settings, they're all pretty big orders for a stock of this size. So anything $9,000-$10,000, those are some significant orders, and it continued. So I felt like at this point, this is probably not just a big a minor pump and dump, or just a single move that we're likely to get another move, and it's going to happen soon. Now, so before I enter, so I'm watching the chart, I'm looking at the flow, and before I enter, I go ahead and just type the Box ticker in here, and I just sort of see what's going on. Now, not a lot of interest in this stock up till this point. We had a few buys in the morning, so some people definitely got in a little before things got going, or a few days before. But overall, for this day, all the flow is bullish, and I might take this down to the smaller orders just to get just to see what's going on. A couple small puts, irrelevant really, but overall, even as you go down to the smaller levels, Box is getting a lot of hits. So go back to the chart. The chart was, the chart was holding up, and we entered approximately here. Some entered here, but as you can see, we then got the big pop up, and then at that point, I scaled out most of my position. It dipped, was still green on it. I was still holding a few, looking for another run up. And while we didn't get continuation beyond its high of the day, we did get another few opportunities to scale out. And I mean, there was an opportunity if you wanted to hold a few over the weekend. You could. The expiration's far enough out where you can take that risk and enter the trade if you wanted to. I had closed out my position, most of it, so about half of it here. Well, I didn't catch the top, but on the run up here, and then it dipped, and then when the RSI got hot again, I scaled out some more. I kept a few, and I just decided before end of day to just go ahead and close out the rest of them. I didn't want to hold a lot this weekend, but this was a trade that that worked well for us, and definitely was a nice way to end the day. And it went up. Let me see. Yeah, so it went up from 45 to 78, or if you got in the 50s, there were chances to get out in the 70s. So so that was a pretty nice gain for us. And that's what I look for intraday. I look for stocks that are getting a lot of attention. You start to really get to know these tickers and recognize names. I look for things that are a little bit unusual, and stocks I don't see often, maybe on here, that all of a sudden get a bunch of interest, and then they'll pop up. But that's just one strategy. I after each trading day, I dig into the flow and specifically focused on the last few hours, and I'll start to try to find some things that catch my attention that possibly we should look at for the next day. Here again, FCX, you can see it did actually get some interest a little bit earlier, before that last buy order. So so that could be one to watch for sure. And let me just take us to another page here. So here was another one. This was a stock that I listed as a for my watch list, is Woof, which is Petco. And during the last hour and a half, it started to get a lot of attention, and it's again, size greater than open interest, so that is interesting. The stock itself did have a little bit of a run up at the end of the day. So you kind of get the sense it's like the big spike happened here, started to sell off into close, came up a bit, had some low volume activity after hours, not really much there. So there's some potential here. I mean, if this were to sell off at open, I definitely might look to enter, buying the same contracts that the whales are buying. So 10-15, 21.5, slightly in the money, but again, it dipped back down. So yeah, I mean, there's a decent chance that they're going to pull this back up again. It depends on market conditions and things, and you always want to manage your risk. But that's how I make my lists. I before I really started in option flow, I would just have a few stocks I would play, and I would just try to play the chart. I would say, like, okay, I want to get to know this like Snow, really well, and I'm just gonna play the chart. But I have some success, but it sort of felt a little like guesswork. You know, my technical analysis isn't as strong as some others, and I'm I work on that and have improved. Definitely improved a lot. Learning to identify levels and things, but I found that following the option flow really helps me to target things and to have some conviction that, okay, I think they're going to really pull this up over this week. Last week, I noticed that oil seemed pretty likely to have a good week based on option flow from the previous week. So even as we were in some really red days, those oil stocks performed very well, and we had a few alerts that did nicely for us. The airlines, so JetBlue on Thursday, I noticed quite a bit of activity in that alert, or sorry, in that option. And not only that, but across the entire sector of airline stocks, they all seem to be getting a lot of activity. And then on Friday, airlines had a huge day. Now, I had sold most of my JetBlue on Thursday because, again, I just didn't really want to keep it overnight. It wasn't quite as on my radar maybe as it should have been on Friday. You got a lot. I had a lot I was juggling with trading that day. But I did keep a few, and they ran over 100%. So same with Merck. So Merck, I had watch listed and played that early in the week, and I actually got out of my last contract at 100%, and then it had that huge run up Friday, and it went 1,000%. Would I have liked to have kept some of that? Sure, but I'm not really going to complain about being green on a trade because I'll just go to the next one. And because I mean, it just as easily could have collapsed and I would have lost on a contract. So you never know. But what this does, what option flow does, and just keeping an eye on it, it allows me to enter trades with conviction. And then at that point, I can weather a dip. Like I said, I don't average down a lot, but I keep a pretty wide stop loss. For one thing, my positions are small in my comfort zone, and I'll go down quite a bit on some contracts, but I'm fairly certain they're going to pull back up, and it often happens pretty quickly. Now, let me just give you one more example of that. So Figs was a stock that I had identified on Thursday as having a lot of potential. Now, it did have a big run up, and so I didn't want to hold it. Like, I didn't want to just grab it and hold it overnight because I thought it might have a sell off in the morning. Now, Lord knows why I wasn't paying attention to this particular one the next day, even though it was on my watch list. But it did in fact have a big sell off. So those contracts that all those whales bought lost a lot of money at open, but on relatively low volume of just, the average volume's 1.7, it was actually below on Friday. They pulled it way back up and pulled it up to new highs, and there you go. So so what, ideally, obviously, the entry point would have been down here. And again, I didn't enter this trade. I don't enter everything I list. But I had conviction that this would actually pull back, pull above these levels, because all the whales were buying, like they started buying down here, but then they bought more up here. And so between, Thursday and October 15th, you get the sense that, they're not looking to lose money on that. Almost all the activity on it for large orders was on the ask side, and were calls. So again, whales aren't always right. Whales lose money too, but I would rather buy what they're buying, and I, have some confidence to stay in trades based on this system. Okay, so this was a video that just kind of went over my settings, what I do, and you can kind of use your own. I'm always happy to answer any kind of questions. I will work on some some more content just to give you a sense of what I'm doing and where my alerts are coming from, and I'm learning too. So as I continue to learn, I look forward to sharing that with you guys. So have a great week, and everyone take care, and I will see you all in the Discord.